Welcome back to Tech Today. I'm your host Aayush Ailawadi, and now it's the battle you've been waiting for, the battle of foldables. It's the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6, just fresh out of Galaxy Unpacked. And guess what? OnePlus, the real king of the foldable segment, is out with an upgraded Apex edition. Which one is the Apex Predator in this foldables race? That's what we're going to find out in this segment of Tech Today. Now, in the battle of foldables, the new OnePlus Open Apex edition comes in this crimson shadow colorway with 1TB storage and 16GB of RAM. The Galaxy Fold 6 comes with 1TB of storage and 12GB RAM, but there's a difference in terms of what's under the hood with the processor. This comes with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and this with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Not much of a difference in terms of performance. This covers up with more RAM. But which foldable is worth your money? The 6th generation of the Samsung or the 1.5 generation of the OnePlus? Well, I think the color looks great and this textured back is definitely nicer than this metallic finish according to me. So this one gets full marks for design. But what about using them in terms of software and hardware? So looks are subjective, but like I said, the OnePlus, the new color looks great, even better than the previous one. The weight is around the same, 239, 240 grams. But in terms of holding it in the hand, thanks to its rounded corners, the OnePlus is definitely more pocketable and easier to handle than the sharp edges on the Z Fold 6. If you don't have a cover on this and you hold this for too long, even holding it while shooting this, it's already piercing through the skin. This is a lot easier to use in that sense, and that too with one hand. Now, of course, both cover displays are 6.3 inches, but the OnePlus is wider and it feels much more natural to use. Samsung has this taller aspect ratio and it can be cumbersome to make it feel like a normal phone. But in terms of durability, Samsung is stronger on paper with Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 protection. Both have 120Hz screens. This is a bit brighter at 2800 nits versus this at 2600 nits. But honestly, Samsung screens are great, so both of them do a fairly decent job if you want to use them for content consumption. But tech gurus will give you all these specs because it's essentially a press release. The real proof is in the pudding, and that happens to be with the crease. With the OnePlus, even with the previous version, it isn't as prominent as the Samsung crease problem. This is something that Samsung needs to fix. You're in your 6th generation, and with prolonged usage, this becomes even more prominent. So this is a big issue, which OnePlus definitely has gotten right on its first attempt. Now, in terms of multitasking, both devices have a fairly decent software, but OnePlus has these typical OnePlus hacks which make multitasking for me personally a lot easier. AI-wise, the Samsung scores in terms of Galaxy AI, which of course they are trying, and it is in an evolutionary phase. The OnePlus doesn't really go on bragging about its AI features, but when AI becomes a thing, that's something OnePlus will need to introduce in these devices as well. Now, honestly, when you're talking about a foldable form factor, you're not going in it for the camera. But if you're creating content and this is your only device, then you want the camera to be fairly decent. Both of them seem all right in terms of output. Maybe one is slightly better than the other in terms of specs, but honestly, Samsung cameras, and this is pretty much like the S24 lineup, are fairly decent in terms of what they do. Sometimes I think this one blows out the exposure and the brightness a little bit more, and this one oversaturates. But this is a problem across the OnePlus and Samsung lineup, so it's not specific to these foldable. What about battery life? OnePlus has a bigger battery at 4805 mAh, while Samsung's is 4400 mAh. OnePlus genuinely lasts longer. It also has faster charging with 67-watt wired charging. Now, I'm going to come to the price, but what about what comes out of the box? When you do a typical unboxing, this one ships with a charger as well as a case, while Samsung, the Fold, only has a C-to-C cable. Now, when it comes to foldables, price is a factor you want to consider. Of course, this one costs 1,50,000 for the new 16GB 1TB version, whereas this one costs over 2 lakh rupees, and that really is a game changer in terms of how much you're saving. You can literally buy another Android device, a fairly decent one, maybe even a Samsung device, a Galaxy device, in that price difference. So honestly, for a fraction or a portion of that price, if you're getting a really formidable foldable, that's an alliteration I had not planned, then the OnePlus Open seems like a much better bet, because there are things, of course, that Samsung does better, but there's a host of things that this does better in the foldables race. And it's a lot easier on the pocket too.